What is up, guys? In this video I'm going to show you 5 of the most common ways that beginner and even more advanced drone pilots crash their drones and how to avoid those mistakes. Having flown drones for years, I've crashed dozens of times in all of these ways, and even now I still do crash on occasion, so hopefully you can learn from some of my mistakes. So the first way that beginners crash their drones is by flying backwards. This is a great way to get epic reveal shots, but when you're flying backwards you can't see where you're going in the camera feed and crashes are often the result. Now you might be saying, but what about obstacle avoidance? Well, while many drones do have obstacle avoidance, if you're flying in sport mode it's turned off, and even when it's turned on it's not totally reliable. So a couple of tips on how to avoid backward flying crashes. First of all, assuming you can see the drone, you need to be looking at the drone and not at the video on your controller when you're flying backwards. Now if you're flying a ways away and using just the video feed on the controller, you can turn the drone 180 degrees to make sure that there aren't any obstacles behind you before you start flying in that direction. And if you think you know without looking, check anyway, because I have come seconds from crashing my drone in a spot that would have been basically impossible to recover because I thought I knew what was behind the drone. And one last trick I like to use for flying backwards is flying the exact same path backwards that I flew forwards. If you fly forwards without changing altitude or turning and you don't hit any obstacles flying forwards, you can simply reverse direction and fly backwards, and the GPS will keep you on the exact same path as you flew forwards, and you can know that you won't run into anything. The second way beginners crash their drones is trusting obstacle avoidance too much. The obstacle avoidance on the latest drones actually does a really great job, but it's not perfect and it can very easily get confused and let you crash anyway. I've seen this happen way too many times, both with myself and just about every single new drone pilot. They crash their drone into something and then they're like,
but it's supposed to have obstacle avoidance. Why did it crash?
Obstacle avoidance is a great safety net that can save you from a lot of crashes. But if you use it as your primary way of avoiding crashes, you're bound to crash anyway. Even with obstacle avoidance, you still need to have spatial awareness of what's on all sides of your drones at all times and know how to maneuver around things. This is one of the reasons I always recommend getting a cheap toy drone to learn on before you get a DJI drone or similar that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. So by the time you start flying these higher end, more expensive drones, you're very comfortable with the basic controls. Also keep in mind that obstacle avoidance works best with large objects like a building or a wall, and is the least effective at detecting small, thin obstacles like bare tree limbs in winter or electric wires. The third way beginner drone pilots crash is to try to fly through tight spaces. Now I love flying through tight spaces because it immerses the viewer in the video, but it is risky because a tiny wrong move can cause a crash. This is where all too many of my drone crashes have happened. I'll also often turn off obstacle avoidance so I can fly through smaller spaces than obstacle avoidance will allow me to, so this adds another level of risk. As a beginner drone pilot, it might be tempting to try to go for those tight gap shots you've seen right away, but that's probably not the best idea. You first need to master the controls of the drone to the point that you don't even have to think about which way you need to push the sticks to make the drone go a certain direction. That is, unless you're feeling really adventuresome and don't mind crashing, then go ahead and do small gaps right from day one. There are a couple ways you can minimize the risk of flying in small spaces though. First of all, put the drone into cine mode or tripod mode, which will slow down the movement and make it easier to control. Second, get prop guards for your drone. If you want to fly in tight spaces, these can save you from countless crashes. And third, if you get directly behind the drone, you can see the path it will take if you fly straight forward and visually verify that there are no obstacles. The fourth way new drone pilots crash is flying sideways. Many drones don't have sideways obstacle avoidance sensors, and you can't see what's behind the drone on the video feed, so it's very easy to run into things when you're flying sideways. The same things that go for flying backwards apply here. Keep visual contact with the drone, or if you're flying from the video feed, always turn and look what's beside you and make sure that you're well above anything that could be an obstacle. And finally, the fifth way that beginner drone pilots crash their drones is by flying into something that's above the drone. Now this one is a bit tricky because on most drones you can't see directly above the drone with the camera. Now if you're high in the sky this shouldn't be a problem, but if you fly indoors or under trees, it's very easy to accidentally run into whatever's above the drone. So to keep from crashing this way, well, you won't crash this way if you don't fly under anything. But for those of us like me who like to fly under things, here are a couple of tips. First of all, if you're flying from the video feed and you think there might be something above the drone, you can tilt the camera up as far as possible and then slowly fly up and forward into the space that you can see is clear in that direction. And kind of a bonus tip, if you're flying under trees and the drone loses connection with the controller, the drone will attempt to return to home and fly straight up into the tree branches. So to prevent this, you need to go into advanced safety settings and change signal lost from return to home to hover when you're flying under things. And just remember to change it back to return to home when you go back to long range flying, because otherwise you could lose your drone if it flies out of range. So those are 5 of the most common ways that beginner drone pilots crash their drones. Let me know in the comments what you think the most common drone crashes are or how you've crashed a drone. And hopefully this video can help to save you from some of these common crashes. And if you'd like to go beyond just knowing how to keep a drone in the air and learn how to get epic drone shots with it, I put together an 8-hour plus course where I teach each step of my process to create cinematic drone videos, showing you how to master skills like composition, lighting, camera settings, editing, color grading, and so much more. And you can check that out by going to flyingfilmmakerpro.com. Or if you aren't ready to dive into the full course, I have a completely free 45-minute drone video training where I share my top 10 secrets of creating cinematic drone videos. And links to both of those are in the description. And if you've gotten value out of this video, you can click or tap the screen to watch another one of our videos, and make sure to gently tap the like button and subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss when I release future videos just like this. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll see you in the next video.